one that perked up my ears certainly this morning when I saw it was Malcolm Butler coming to town, back for the Patriots, or at least for a visit. We have no clue if he's actually going to sign with New England. Sat out last year, didn't play last year, was a 1-year retirement. Reports out there long before this visit that Malcolm Butler is trying to make a comeback into the NFL after sitting out the year last year. His 2020 season in Tennessee wasn't awful. It wasn't good. It wasn't awful. He gave up over 900 yards in coverage, but he played a lot. He played over 1,000 snaps. He had 5 picks on the year. It was not a terrible season for him in 2020. How do you feel about this? Because I think there's obviously multiple angles to it. One, at least initially, it's going to be a little bit of a circus if they sign him, right? Like, why is he here? The questions that Bill Belichick is going to present and open up from the reporters in the room. If he signs a guy like Malcolm Butler, the questions about Super Bowl 52 are coming, right? Or 51, whatever it was. 52, I think I got it.
2.
Yeah. The questions are immediately coming. I'm sure Shaughnessy or somebody's going to come down the first day of training camp and start, blowing up the spot with those questions. So he's bringing on those types of questions. I don't even know if Malcolm Butler can really play anymore. So from a football standpoint, I'm not sure it's really worth it. But it feels like they're at this point with corner where they have to throw some veterans. Like I said earlier, with a guy like Eric Flowers, you got to throw some veterans in the hat and see if one of these guys stick. Right. And Malcolm Butler kind of feels like another one of those types of guys.
Yeah. And again, they just need that kind of player. The cupboard's bare at corner. It's not just about needing a number 1 corner. You need depth as well. I like Malcolm Butler, even after a year off. I'll take Malcolm Butler over Terrence Mitchell, right? I think most people would. Some of the names we've floated, guys like Joe Hayden. I feel like Joe Hayden, Malcolm Butler, that's a wash. Butler's been here. He knows the system. He knows what's going to be asked of him. He knows the day-to-day routine. I don't hate it at all. They desperately need corners. Even if you draft somebody, you just need a veteran in that room. That's a young room. That's a young group. It's a lot of guys that haven't played, right? How much do you want Joanne Williams to really play this year if he makes the team? Would you rather Joanne Williams or Malcolm Butler? At the very least, Malcolm Butler's your 3rd corner. He bumps Joanne Williams down, maybe bumps him off the roster. It's absolutely a good move. This is the kind of move they need to make at this point. And I'm not saying it's enough to fill in the loss of J.C. Jackson, but given what's at their disposal right now, it's their best option.
So the number one thing I like about this is that last year they ran into a situation, and I get COVID was a factor, but COVID's still going to probably be somewhat of a factor, where they had practice squad guys playing corner in a playoff game because they had no depth at the position, right? So they had Juwan Williams out there. They had Bugsby out there playing corner against Buffalo in the wild card round. And we talked about it a ton, and we continue to talk about it after they traded Stefon Gilmore, before they traded Stefon Gilmore, that the Patriots were lacking veteran depth at corner. So now you bring in somebody like Terrence Mitchell, you potentially bring in somebody like Malcolm Butler, and you have 2 veteran guys that can play if they're called upon. Nobody is saying that Malcolm Butler is CB1 problem solved. Let's walk away from the position in the draft, right? There's still, when we start doing mock drafts, if Andrew Booth Jr. or Kyler Gordon or Kier Elam from Florida are still on the board when that pick comes up, we're going to talk about it, right? I mean, that's obviously going to be a major need for this team. But it's another one of those guys that keeps you away, like you said, from playing Juwan Williams in a playoff game or playing somebody off the practice squad in a playoff game. He's also somebody that can potentially move inside a little bit or play that Z shadow role where he's guarding receivers that move in and out and aren't necessarily just full-time guys on the outside. So that I like about it too. You obviously have the familiarity with the system. I just wonder, one, does he still have anything in the tank? Does he still have the juice? Can he still play? And 2, it does bring up, for all the sports radio people, for all the reporters trying to grab a story, it does bring up that angle of it too. But this team has dealt with it before. You mentioned earlier to me, like Tim Tebow, right? Coming in to training camp 10 years ago. Let's not go down that road. I'm just saying.
That was a little different. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They've brought in these guys before that you would be concerned. Now, I think a lot of the time everybody just sits there and says, oh, well, they do this all the time. It always works out. It's fine. I'm not saying that Malcolm Butler is going to pull an Antonio Brown. Like, that's a totally unique situation, but it's not always fine, right? Like, it doesn't always work out sunshines and rainbows. Like, sometimes
I feel like
it does backfire on them. It doesn't most of the time.
Malcolm Butler feels very like Antonio Brown. That was a risk. It was not only all of their cap space that year, it was significant dead money the next year. He was basically asked to fix their entire offense. Like, Malcolm Butler, you're giving limited money. It's going to be a 1-year deal. Worst thing that happens is he has a good camp. You plan on having him, and then he retires on you, right? He decides, you know what, I can't do it anymore. I wouldn't put Malcolm Butler in that category. I think the risk is tremendously low.
Yeah, it is. It does.
What's you know what the worst thing that happens is? He comes to his press availability, his first media availability, tells us all why Bill benched him in the Super Bowl, and Bill cuts him on the spot. Like, that's the worst case scenario. And then at least we finally get that answer. So whatever.
Yeah. It does come full circle at that point, right? Like, there is definitely some of that to it. I don't hate the idea of it because I think that this familiarity and, again, the veteran depth was just something that they didn't have last year. They didn't have those guys that they could play in a pinch and feel any sort of good about. When they went into that game in the playoffs against Buffalo, we all knew they were porked before the game even started. With that cornerback group, we knew they were porked. They're probably still porked with Malcolm Butler and Terrence Mitchell out there, but at least those are two guys that have started in the NFL, have good NFL tape. We're not talking about guys that they're pulling off the street and starting in the playoff games. So it would be interesting. That's for sure. Also puts to bed, maybe time heals all wounds, and that's part of it. But I think I'm not going to go into all the conspiracy theories with Malcolm Butler and why he was benched in Super Bowl 52. But some of the crazy ones that you hear where there was real personal feelings involved, maybe go out the door. I know it's been a couple of years now. Maybe time heals all wounds, like I said, but at some point you have to look at it and say, if something that bad happened behind the scenes, then there's no way he'd be here right now.
Right. Yeah. There's one that, like, he threw a punch at Bill in the locker room like that. Bill's not bringing him back for a visit if that was it. What's a more ridiculous reunion though? Malcolm Butler or Stefon Gilmore? Because I feel like if they'll bring Butler back and Butler would come back, like hypothetically, if he would, then Stefon Gilmore should be very realistic, I think.
Yeah.
It's not as far away. You said time heals all wounds. We're talking months with Gilmore instead of years, but that was we're years later. That was a pretty good cornerback duo, Gilmore and Butler.
Yeah.
Run it back, right? We're getting all these reboots on TV and whatever. I'll reboot that defense.
The thing with Stefon Gilmore is that it has not, I don't think it has, I truly don't think it has a lot to do with the relationship between Gilmore and the team. He didn't love the way that they handled his injury and his rehab from the injury. That was a pressure point. He talked about it publicly, but Stefon Gilmore is a mercenary. If somebody pays him, he's coming, right? I mean, it's really
that's what I'm saying. And I think if he sees Bills bringing back Malcolm Butler, I mean, what does that say if you're Stefon Gilmore, right? Doors open for business. So
the Stefon Gilmore thing is totally about the money. Apparently the Raiders, the Raiders really want him. So
my pitch to Gilmore would be, because I get he's all about the money. My pitch to Gilmore would be, the money you want's not out there. You know you can succeed here. Come here, 1-year deal, reset the value, then go get paid again. Now that might be a tough pitch after the way things ended, but like you said, Gilmore's all about the money. If he's going to ultimately end up on a 1-year deal, he doesn't want to be in the AFC West. If he's got a 1-year deal, does he want to face Russell Wilson twice a year, Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert twice a year, Patrick Mahomes twice a year? He doesn't want to do that. So I think that could be a successful pitch.
Be interesting. Definitely go out there. The question is with their cap space, and I know that some people don't think the cap matters, and I'm kind of in between with it, right? Like, I think it matters to a point, but it doesn't matter. It's not the only thing that matters in these types of situations.
So it's not, you can buy your way out of cap trouble. It's just about how willing you are to do that.
Exactly. Good way to put it. With Gilmore, for him to come back here, it would have to be a 1-year prove it type deal, right? He didn't get what was out there on the market. He takes a 1-year deal. plays well in a system that he knows, and then goes and tries to cash out one more time next offseason. The Patriots, to make that 1-year deal work, it would really have to be on the cheap. It would have to be something like $8 or $9 million at the most. And then they would probably still have to convert Matthew Judon's salary to a signing bonus or do some other tinkering with the cap as it is, which they're probably going to do anyways, right? So it doesn't really make that much of a difference. But I do think it's worth noting that the Patriots cannot pay, even on a 1-year deal, Stefon Gilmore $14 million, right? It's going to have to be something in the high single digits. So that's, I think, a big problem with that as well. Thanks for watching our content of the 6-time Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. Please subscribe to my podcast, Patriots Beat, on our YouTube channel, Patriots Press Pass, or wherever you get your podcasts for a lot more exclusive content right here on the CLNS Media Network.